Good day and welcome back. So this whole video is going to be about building the cages or the boxes or the access panels or accessways or whatever you want to call them. Essentially the two pieces that hold the landing gear for the eagles. Essentially they're a bunch of cage work wrapped around two corridors with a bunch of clear glues on them. And they're, the interesting thing about these is they are basically just boxes with stuff stuck on them and little things sticking around here and there. And the real trick is going to be actually doing the cage pieces. Now, the way these were designed, it was pretty interesting, and they go together fairly well. There's some tricky things to them. So as we walk through this, I'll go ahead and talk through them, and I'll give the voiceover on pretty much what I had to do to get these done. So without waffling on too much, we'll go ahead and cut to that. So let's get started. Alright, here we go. We're starting on step 12. And you can see how you're kind of putting the four sides of the box together. This is where things get a little bit interesting. Now, first of all, I found there's two holes in that part that go all the way through. I found it after I built it on the first one, so I put that piece of plastic in the back for the second one so I didn't have to fill it. Now, here's the first bad fit. It really is bad. The way these key pieces go in, you're kind of fiddling a lot with to get them in to set right. So what I end up doing is I get the bottom part put together, hit it with some Tamiya thin, and then I hit this side. Now, what I'll do is I'll get this in. Now, see that piece right there, that circle? That goes toward the side that has the arms. That orientation matters. Once I get that on, hit it with, put the door in, then it's a bunch of little fiddling, going back and forth, putting this in, hitting these up. Now pull out some sheet styrene, and then here's why. The bottom seam is just miserable, so why bother filling it? I'm just going to go ahead and cut some sheet styrene. Now this is me measuring it out, locating just exactly how big it needs to be, then I'll measure it, cut it. So the big panel lines, or the big panels, they're long and flat, there's nothing on them, so it's easier for me to just go ahead and make them. Now the back piece, the piece that has the main motors on them, they have the exact same mounting points that you have for the front where you put the eagle's heads piece. So I do the same thing here. Again, I'm just covering up this big old seam. Now once I get this in there, I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to punch a hole where that hole is, because that's going to be important for the roof, or for the framework. Now this is the piece that goes for the beak, and that goes again only on one side of them. The other one will get that sheet to cover it. So now I get these in. So these are, you see the doors, you see the orientation. So that's, one has the mount for the head, the other one has main motor. That's the orientation. You see that circle piece, which is toward the inside with those main doors. And then there's your bottom. So it's pretty straightforward. Now I'll let this stuff dry up. Next step now is to get the cages built. And that's step 13. And this is also a little bit tricky. I looked forever for R20. You see those ones that have the little notches in them, right? I looked forever. It's right next to the other ones. You can see where I've circled it. It's just hidden. It's really subtle, hard to find. So there you go, that's where it is. Now you also see the mount for it is square, where everything else is circular. So that helps you orient that piece. Once again, mold lines, mold lines, mold lines, mold lines. I've mentioned this like 1,000 times, and you're going to see a whole bunch of this. And I'm not going to belabor that point, but all of the cage, everything, all needs that done. Now these go in a little tricksy. And I fiddle around trying to get these to where they go, and what I end up doing was I work on one side and I sort of start at the bottom and just compress in and fit everything in and then roll around. And I kind of fiddled back and forth before I figured it out, but you can see how I do here. I get one side done, I get them in, and you see how that other side's mounted up. Now I'll go ahead and put the other side in. I found that to be the best way to do this. It seems to be the smoothest. So I get those guys in, go ahead and get everything oriented, hit it with a little bit of Tamiya Thin, get these pieces, that I squeeze them, and then tape the heck out of them. And really, that's what I ended up doing. I use painter's tape for this. Now, orientation matters here, guys. And this is where I messed up. The top cage was off, and we'll see that again a little bit later. But once I get these put in right, I'm going to go ahead and just this painter's tape holds this all together. Then I can go back over parts of this and hit it again with Tamiya Thin, and this binds that all together, gets them put in to where all of that cage work now is looking nice and sharp, and it's staying together. So now we have these cage pieces done. They're ready to go, and now it's time to move on to the next step we have here, and that is go ahead and putting on steps. The pieces that are in step 14, which we did in like episode 2, you just slide them on. It's pretty straightforward and easy. So I get those put on, and then instead of going on step 15, I decide we're going to do a bit of weathering first, right? So before I get the cages put in, I'm going to, once they're in place, it's going to be hard to get to this detail. So what I want is a pin wash, and I want to do a pin wash across this whole thing to bring out a lot of that detail like I did in the cockpit and other places. So I'll go through and I'll do that now before I get that cage in place, so I can highlight all this detail in here without really going overboard. Now this is again where I mentioned before, the model's going to have to be painted in stages. Now fortunately the Eagle is built in a very modular way, so you can kind of do that and get away with it. And that's what I'm going to be doing. I go through, I get this pin wash in, and it really brings that detail out without going overboard with weathering. I don't have a lot of dust effects or anything like that, and it kind of keeps it true to the show and true to my own aesthetic, which is really kind of what I'm after, right? It's pretty important. So I get through, I get all this done, and then it's time to go ahead and put the cage pieces on. And we've already got them made, and it's just a matter of putting them in place. So we get them clicked in. And the cool thing about this, right, is they click in. The way they're engineered, the lugs that are on the cage tips actually allow them to click. You know, you'll feel a little click when they go in, which is really nice. They just slide right on. So we get them put in place and then squeeze, and then we hit them with Tamiya Thin. And then again, like I said, this is where things fit well. And just go through, hit them with Tamiya Thin, we crank along, and just start getting everything oriented. Now, about now is when I realize I oopsed. So I'm going to go ahead and take a quick look. Something looks a little funky. So I get my cage. You see those locking lugs right there for the upper cage. So we take the piece here that's for the main motor. They clip right in. It mounts just right. See that piece, that big piece that's like the back half of the lunar module, it's fine. Now if I do it here, it's hitting it. See that bar right there, right in the middle of the screen? I need to move that up in order to do this. This is where I realize that that's a problem. So I just have to take the lugs off and reorient it. So, so if I go ahead and I take this piece that's in my hand, this is the one for main motor, we clip that in place. Now we roll it around. All I need to do is find out how far along here I got to put it in, and I'll glue it in. It'll be fine. So obviously I had to get a quick look and see what it looked like to put together. The panel wash really brought it out. I really like the detail, the way that looks in there. So it's a good place to call it for now. All right. So that was the cages, accessways, whatever you want to call them. Like I said, I did point out a couple of gotchas on there. And they go together fairly well. The real trick, right, I feel like, is really looking at the instructions and understanding the next steps. So I did get caught on the top piece of the one where I got the top part backwards. Now all the two side pieces and the underneath were correct. The top piece was pointing back toward the pod, which means the two little tabbies for the front cage piece that'll go on later is wrong. That's okay because it's workable. The other problem is it means that the anchor points for the upper cage are off. So what I have to do is I gotta essentially what it just means is I need to snip off the locking lugs that put that piece in place and glue those in with paper clips and hold it, or not paper clips, but alligator clips, and hold them in place till it sets up correctly. But now I have to wait for the pod to be done so I can get it located to the right area to do it correctly. So that's a mistake I've made, and oops. I don't want to take it all apart. There's enough. I was late enough in there that it isn't worth it. I'll figure it out. So with that said, right, just pay attention, right? And I'm finding with this build and with this model, there's a lot of things where the instructions are just a little bit unclear, and orientation matters. It matters a very great deal. So, but overall, right, if you pay attention and take a little bit of time to preview what you have in your next steps, this goes together pretty well. It just takes some of the pieces are a little bit fiddly. Yeah, it's all, they're all workable, right? You can handle these. These are not, beyond people's capability. And the way they go together, the way they key in, really helps you not make mistakes. And I feel like, the mistake I made was simple oversight. So, other than that, I'm really happy with it. I do feel I needed to weather those before I got into doing any more of them. So I'm actually building it and mostly weathering, as we do the sub-assemblies. And that's, I feel like, going to be necessary for this kit. There will be an overall weathering stage later on, where we put on the transfers and everything, but more to that as we get to it. Anyway, I've waffled enough about this one. This video is long enough. So with that said, those are the cages and the accessways. We will go ahead and get to our next step in the next episode. So until then, thank you very much for watching. I hope this was helpful and entertaining. As always, I am open to constructive criticism and suggestions. Please feel free. Messages down below. And until next time, thank you very much. Happy modeling.